I love Mortal Kombat, one of my favorite video game franchises, and plus, I love fighting games. But when you actually go back to the first entries in the series, you actually realize how important they are to not just fighting games, but video games as a whole. Like, objectively, even if you don't like them, they are kind of like culturally significant. I mean, these games helped further the fighting game genre, which would lead to stuff like esports. These games had digitized actors, and think what you will about this, they even helped create the ESRB rating system. And I never really realized how little they were preserved until we got the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. And after playing it, I gotta say, in many ways it is great. But in other areas, oof. Let's talk about it. Hi guys, MiiKcast here reviewing today Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. Now before we get started, you know what to do. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell, leave a comment, or I will perform my own fatality on you. Starting off with the good, in terms of content, Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection is amazing. There are 11 games in this collection, with a K, but that's not counting each version of the games included. When you do that, you get a whopping 23 games. I'll go over each of them, starting off, of course, with the original arcade version of Mortal Kombat 1. Not the reboot, MK1 as in like the original. A very solid game and definitely the best version of the original Mortal Kombat, but then there's also the Genesis version, the Super Nintendo version without the blood, the Game Boy version, and the Game Gear version. How often do we see a Game Gear game get re-released, even if it is just a port? Obviously, I think of the console/handheld versions, the Genesis version is the best. It beats out the SNES version because it actually has blood, and let's be real, you're not really going to play the Game Boy or Game Gear versions. Then we got Mortal Kombat 2, the improved sequel. Obviously, we got the arcade version, which is a very solid game. We also got the Genesis version, 32X, SNES, and Game Boy. Kind of strange how they included the Game Gear version of the first game, but not this one. Not that I care that much. It's cool that we got the 32X version, though. Again, like the Game Gear, how often do we see a 32X game get re-released like this? So we got Mortal Kombat 3 for the arcade, Sega Genesis, and SNES. Not a terrible MK game, but very questionable. Not questionable as in, like, why is it here? Because it needs to be here, you know, but questionable on its own in that Scorpion and Sub-Zero are missing from this game. Huh? But they fixed that with Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, which is also present in this collection. We got the arcade version, the WaveNet arcade version, and the Super Nintendo version. Kind of strange how they don't have the Sega Genesis version of the game, or even the PS1 version. That would have been neat, but I can't complain when they brought back the WaveNet version. In case you don't know, WaveNet was basically an early prototype for arcade online play. So basically this version of UMK3 had online play, and was also the most like updated version of UMK3, before Trilogy that is, as it had like balance changes and all that. But because of how early it was, this version of the game was actually like lost media until now. So that is epic. After all that, you get to the best game in the collection that I just mentioned for a second, Mortal Kombat Trilogy. It's between that and UMK3, but I've always had a soft spot for Trilogy. I guess I just eat it up whenever you get like the ultimate roster that combines all the previous rosters, and that's exactly what MK Trilogy is. It takes the roster of the trilogy, hence the name, and combines them into one. The version featured here is the PS1 version, which probably is the best version of MK Trilogy, but the N64 version does include the female Chameleon, but she's not in any other version, which means you aren't playing the absolute definitive version of MK Trilogy, but still, epic game. Plus you got the male Chameleon in this game, so you got that at least. Then we got Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero. Then we got Mortal Kombat 4. This is a weird MK game. It was a big transition to 3D, and it was definitely hated at first, although I think people have come around on it, especially since, after playing it, it's actually not that bad. But regardless of how you feel about MK4, it is really cool that they finally found the source code for this game. The arcade version, that is. Then we got Mortal Kombat Special Forces, and then we got Mortal Kombat Advance. Holy shit, they got Deadly Alliance in here? Oh, but it's the GBA version. And then finally, Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition. Not a bad game. It's like a semi-follow-up to the GBA version of Deadly Alliance, and as for the GBA version of Deadly Alliance, not a terrible game, but I'll have more to say later. But even though I joked about some games being here, either way, there is no other way to splice this. This lineup is fucking legendary. If you are covering the older era of Mortal Kombat, I guess you can call it like the arcade era, there's not a single game missing. Well, except for one, but we'll get there. As for other things, there's a bunch of settings you can mess with for all these games. For example, certain games that have unlockable characters, you can auto-unlock all characters, give yourself unlimited lives in the spin-off games, which is really cool because those games have some serious fucking bullshit in them. And in the Game Gear version of the original MK, and only this one, by the way, for some reason, you can make it so that your opponent starts the match with one smidge of health, and you just have to do one hit and then you win. Plus, all the games have rewind, which I think is very neat and not awkward. Some collections have a rewind option, but it can be implemented in a way that just feels weird, you know. In the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection, though, you just press the left analog stick, and there you go. But you come to a collection game like this for the games featured. You stay, however, for all the bonus content. And what better way to label the bonus content than the Crypt? In there you find a music player, which is really cool. Mortal Kombat has a lot of music throughout its history, much like any franchise, although I feel like MK doesn't really have much memorable music. You got the character select screen theme from the first game, which is pretty memorable, and the more iconic Mortal Kombat theme that's from the movie, and it's not even in any of the games. But that's about it. But either way, we're still in the good, and most collections have a music player, so this one should have one too, and I am ultimately happy that it's here. But another thing that pops up from the Crypt is Combatants, where it shows every single playable character from each game in this collection, and by each game, I mean all of them up to MK4. And you can read about their lore, basically. You can look at artwork and learn about their stories from each game they've been in. It's unnecessary and most likely stuff you already knew if you're a fan of the series, but still, stuff like this I eat up. But Combatants and Music Player ain't nothing compared to the final thing offered in the Crypt, and that is documentary. You heard that right. There is a documentary in this game, and it's not necessarily a full feature-length doc. It's more like you view certain episodes on a timeline in chapters, and in between each episode you can look at other little tidbits, stuff like concept art, button sketches, pictures of characters like Goro and how they managed to implement him in the game, set footage of the actors performing their moves, screenshots of other games that helped inspire Mortal Kombat, including fucking Street Fighter, a Mortal Kombat game that references and name drops Street Fighter? What world are we living in? It's all cool stuff like that. It's an interactive documentary. That's what this is. But I mentioned that there is documentary footage, and I said that it's not feature length, something which I thought it was at first. But it's not feature length because it's cut up. If you put all the footage together, there is well over 4 hours of documentary footage in this game. That is crazy. I haven't actually gotten to watch all the footage, but man, I want to. I actually want to. And sure, I'm sure a lot of this footage is on YouTube. But just like the real way to experience a theatrical film is in the theaters, I think the real way to experience this Mortal Kombat documentary is through the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. So I basically want to learn about the creation of this franchise and other cool stuff. It's so cool. And a lot of this stuff I probably already know as well. I have a lot of issues with this collection that I will get into shortly. One thing Digital Eclipse did not fail at is making this feel like a celebration of Mortal Kombat. You will fail. Moving on to the mixed aspects, I alluded to this earlier, but yeah, there are 3 games on here that are a little questionable. First off, Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, the first attempt at a Mortal Kombat spin-off in that an MK game that is not a fighting game. It's a side-scroller with some platforming here and there, some fighting game elements here and there, and it's a prequel to the Mortal Kombat games but told from Sub-Zero's perspective. But why is it bad? Well, first off, you press a button in order to turn around instead of just flicking the analog stick. That might not sound like anything too bad, but in practice, it makes the game feel very awkward. Plus, there is some seriously bullshit platforming. You can't always tell which platforms you can jump on and which ones you can't, so it becomes frustrating. Plus, when you run, you kind of run faster than the screen scrolls, so you'll end up getting bombarded by an enemy you didn't even know was there. And also, this is the PS1 version, which means you get the FMV cutscenes, which is definitely the one redeeming quality of this game, and it brings ironic enjoyment. Then there is Mortal Kombat Special Forces. Mythology Sub-Zero is kinda like Sub-Zero's standalone game, so Special Forces is Jax's standalone game. And it's worse. I'll even say it's way worse. The camera angles are terrible and you can't control them. Enemies take insanely long to kill. The controls are very janky and sluggish. The environments are lifeless and empty. And the graphics, even for a PS1 game, don't look great. Plus, this game had an infamously troubled development, and its failure led John Tobias, the series co-creator, to leave the series and never return until the documentary in this collection. So Special Forces is so bad, even the creators hate it. And then there's Advance. This game is not a total flop like Special Forces or even Sub-Zero. It's not like this overly ambitious game that just failed. But it's a fucking lousy port of Ultimate MK3 to the Game Boy Advance. It's bad. All this, and it's only under mixed. So why is that? Well, as bad as these games are, it is kinda cool that they are here. I remember reviewing the Capcom Fighting Collection 2 earlier this year and saying something similar about Capcom Fighting Evolution, and that's even bad games deserve preservation, and I'll even go a step further. Historic bad games deserve preservation, whether it be because they're historically bad, or in the case of Mythologies and Special Forces, historic in the context of the franchise's history. Because a game like Special Forces kind of altered the history of this franchise. And looking back, I think the idea of Mortal Kombat games that aren't fighting games is very interesting, even if they are bad. It's just weird that they exist, and for nothing else, I think people should have the option to experience these weird relics, even if they end up hating them because they control terribly. And if nothing else, for a game like Special Forces, which was so bad, it led to the co-creator to leave, and they include it, and all parties involved are good with that, and then the co-creator comes back for a documentary that's within this collection that includes the game that led him to leave? I don't know, something about that just warms my heart. Moving on to the bad. Look, there are so many aspects of the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection that I love. This lineup of games, even if it includes bad ones, is still fucking solid. The documentary footage is amazing, and you really do stay for the bonus content. But there are many issues that really do hurt the overall package for me. For one, I'll start with something that is definitely smaller in comparison to some of the other issues, and that's, why is the GBA version of Deadly Alliance here? Who asked for this? Even though this collection consists of 3 universally reviled games, I can still get behind why they are here. I cannot understand why the GBA version of Deadly Alliance is in this collection. I was excited initially to find out that Deadly Alliance was listed because I thought maybe they were gonna save that era for MK for a later collection. But it's the fucking GBA version, and I don't think they made that clear before releasing this game. But to be fair, I see this game as a weird addition to the collection as opposed to taking up a spot from another game, because if we are just covering this earlier era of Mortal Kombat, what game could possibly be missing? MK Gold? Yeah, that leads me to my next issue. Where is Mortal Kombat Gold? I get it's just an updated version of MK4 for the Dreamcast, but you have multiple versions of MK3, then multiple versions of UMK3, which is an updated version of MK3, and then Trilogy, which is half updated version of Ultimate MK3, half different thing entirely. Why couldn't we get Mortal Kombat Gold? Maybe they didn't want to do Dreamcast emulation? I don't know. As far as I know, I think Dreamcast emulation's easy, even for these developers. So I don't get what the problem here is. But that's a weird omission. But now to move on to bigger issues. The AI in the older games were always notoriously difficult and kind of brain dead, and they still are. I wasn't gonna bring this up because I thought I was just bad, and to be fair, I'm not very good in general. You know, I love fighting games, but I was never that good at them, if I'm gonna be honest. But I heard other people bring up issues with the AI difficulty, so it can't just be me. Even setting the AI to the easiest difficulty, I mean, it is easier, but they still could be a little brain dead and just spam the same move that you can't fucking avoid because it takes up the entire screen. And speaking of AI, some Mortal Kombat fans sorta investigated and found out that the art in the menus that you see here is AI generated. That is disappointing. You go all out in many areas, but you can't get someone to actually make menu art. You have to use AI, and to be fair, I'm actually not 100% sure it's AI generated. It really sounds like it is, but there's a chance that maybe it's not, so if that's the case, disregard this part. But if it is, that's kind of frustrating. I have another minor issue. For each game, you can select from many different options like play game, training, fatality training, all that stuff. But one thing you can do is versus. I originally wanted to do that because I thought, oh, I can just do like a one-on-one match with the CPU and not do a whole like arcade ladder, you know? But that's not what that is. It's a 1v1 against like another player locally, you know? At least that's what it seems like. I wish there was an option to just go up against the CPU. But okay, all that aside, one cool selling point for all these fighting game collections is that they add online play to each of these older games. These older games, by the way, never originally had online. And Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection is no different, as it has online, but how come I haven't mentioned it up until now? Well, there's no two ways about it. The online is fucking terrible. Oh god. First off, right off the bat, for me at least, finding matches takes a long ass time. Like, look here. No, this is not a screenshot. This is actual footage of me trying to find a match for MK Trilogy. It went on for way too long. I specify though that this problem is for me though, because for most people, it sounds like it's more of a coin flip whether or not you have an easy time finding a match. But the fact that it can even take this long in the first place is insane. But as for other online elements, there's no ranked, there's no leaderboards, there's no private lobbies, you can't play with friends, like what the fuck? And there's no crossplay. What are we doing here? How are you not gonna have any of these things at launch? And yeah, I specify at launch because Digital Eclipse and Atari clarified that some of these things will be coming at a later date and weren't at launch because adding like online for the arcade games turned out to be a bigger undertaking than expected, or at least it was something like that. I get that, but then delay it. There's also audio issues online. Like, listen to this. This happens every single time you go online. It is awful. And this doesn't happen offline, except for apparently during training mode in MK4. I never brought that up because I never experienced that myself. I'm not disregarding it, but it wasn't an issue I had. But still, how does this even get approved, where the audio consistently gets all fucky online? And yeah, I did just say fucky. Not to mention, none of the handheld games have online. I guess it's not that big of a deal because you're probably not going to play the handheld games anyways, but it does sort of feel like the devs got lazy and didn't want to add online for the games that originally required link cables for multiplayer. There's also input delay. You can change the amount of delay for the games, but it defaults to 4? That's insane! And you can change the delay to 1, but fucking woof. Also, one other annoying thing is you try to get into an online match for one game, realize it's taking too long, so you quit, try getting into an online match for another game, but then it connects you to the one that you quit, if that makes sense. Needless to say, Digital Eclipse, Atari, WB, whoever, they gotta straighten out the online.
So whether you hate me or love me for it, you know, now C's are now K's.
That was a long rant about the negatives. But look, here's how I look at the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. Near flawless victory of a collection and celebration of Mortal Kombat. As a game that was released though, like as a $50 video game, it leaves a lot to be desired. If you stick with offline and never even touch the online for this game, you might just think it's worth it. I mean, many games that were rarely if ever re-released, including games like the WaveNet version of UMK3 and the arcade version of MK4. One was considered lost media and the other had its source code lost. And even the bad games like Mythology, Special Forces, and Advance still have a place here. Plus, the hours upon hours of documentary footage makes Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection a flawless victory when you play offline. Online, it's not just rough, it's really bad. Like, they need to add crossplay, they need to add private lobbies, ranked mode, they need to fix the input lag, the audio issues, the slow connections. So this is really difficult to score. On the one hand, if we remove the online entirely and just score it as if it's an offline only game, I'd probably give it a 9 or 9.5. And if the online was good, maybe even a 10. But I can't do that because the online is supposed to be a major selling point for this game, and it's bad. So I'm gonna have to give Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection a 7 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review for Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection. What do you guys think? Look, it's hard for me to say this is disappointing because I really enjoyed so much of this, but there's also just so many, like, the online is terrible and there's other quality of life things that I just don't jive with at all. What do you guys think? Do you guys like Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection? Do you guys not like it? Have you guys played it, not played it? If you guys haven't played it, do you guys want to play it, not want to play it? Anything about the game, let me know down below. Anyways, check if you want to come subscribe or I will perform my own fatality on you.